Well, let's get to tech earnings. It is a first for Apple. It's reported quarterly revenue that topped $100 billion for the first time, fueled by strong holiday sales of the iPhone 12. Let's discuss the numbers with Kawasaki President and CEO Ross Gerber. Ross, great to have you with us. What stood out to you in this set of earnings, other than obviously the headline milestone that we just talked about?
Well, it's an incredibly impressive number, and it just shows the total dominance Apple has over the PC, iPad, phone market, as well as the fact that their services business couldn't have been better timed to be at the maturity level that it's at. So we're seeing an enormous benefit that Apple's now receiving from really moving into services at the right time. So Apple continues to be a core holding at my firm, but I think a core holding for all investors because they continue to dominate their markets and produce great products and profits.
But, you know, there's been so much expectations being sky high over this so-called super cycle, right? Yet we saw the stocks fall despite that bumper set of numbers. Is this on concern that the outlook from here is looking perhaps not as optimistic?
No, I think that Apple stock has run up along with the entire stock market to a very, very high level. In fact, Apple's price earnings ratio is the highest it's been in a decade or more. And so the fact that it sells off a little bit after a strong earnings number doesn't surprise me in any way. We really think with elevated stock levels, you know, stocks anticipate the future. And so these, you know, little sell-offs are just little blips in the road and opportunities for investors.
Ross, you actually call Apple a solid as a rock company, but also a very boring company. Do we need a boring company in these times of GameStops, AMCs, and even Tesla that has a cult following?
Yes. Yeah, you know, I was talking about this earlier today about, you know, you kind of want things in your portfolio that are solid as a rock, like Microsoft and Apple, and then you want things that have some level of risk and also growth opportunities like Tesla. But the GameStop and the AMCs of the world are simply just trades and gambling, and there's a place for that for speculation, and a small portion of your money maybe, but for most people, I would recommend just staying away from it. People are going to make and lose tons of money playing this game, and it's no different than betting on the Super Bowl. So I actually recommend betting on the Super Bowl is probably easier.
What about betting on Tesla? Of course, it has disappointed today. We are seeing downside pressure, although they did still log 6 consecutive quarters of profit.
Yeah, you know, I'm not disappointed with Tesla at all. In fact, I think that that's just looking at an EPS number after the CEO made $267 million in the quarter. So that's a very high compensation for a CEO, but well-deserved considering the returns for shareholders and also the actual performance of the company. So Elon's compensation did knock earnings down, but actual top-line numbers, actual cash flow numbers, new Model S refresh, the car looks amazing. I'm going to order one as soon as I can. I can't wait to trade in my Model 3 for this plaid Model S, the fastest car on the road. So I'm excited for what Tesla has to say in the conference call later, and I think their numbers are fine. They're great.
Ross, when you take a look at the companies today, you know, from, as Sherry mentioned, GameStop to Tesla, and then you talk about Apple being a boring company. Well, you know, Apple was considered at one point and still is considered a visionary, but certainly not in the mainstream as it always has been now, right? So if we look ahead to 5-10 years' time, what's going to be the boring company that is not considered that at the moment?
The one that gets to where it needs to be and matures, I think that's Tesla. So, you know, when you look out 10 years, I see Tesla being like a Microsoft or an Apple, dominating its markets. Hopefully, Elon will, you know, in his older age, maybe calm down a little bit. I don't know if that's a reality, but I don't know if I'm going to calm down either. But I think that Tesla will become a mature company one day, and it's in hyper growth mode right now, and it will be a more boring company when they achieve all their goals and get super huge. But that's the life cycle of a company. And so, you know, I would love to see that happen, you know, over the next decade.
In the meantime, as we await everybody to get a little bit boring, where do you put your money given that we could see more regulatory scrutiny? We had Elizabeth Warren saying that she's really waiting for regulators to wake up and do their jobs. If you have this threat of perhaps more regulation in the markets, where do you look at for opportunities?
Well, look, first of all, politicians need to regulate themselves. They're very, very corrupt, many of them insider trading and doing, really questionable behavior themselves. So I think politicians should be regulating themselves. Secondly, markets are performing as markets do. Actually, this was caused by excessive leverage by hedge funds over shorting stocks using naked shorting techniques to create enormous leverage to put companies out of business. And it just backfired on them. And the fact that retail investors have used a blog to communicate so that they could kill a ridiculous short position, which was actually led by professional investors from the Chewy Corporation who bought GameStop. None of this is questionable in my mind. This is the way markets behave, and sometimes the markets behave irrationally because of outside forces, but they correct themselves, and you'll see that with GameStop, AMC, BlackBerry, and the like. And they'll correct themselves and go back to zero eventually too. But right now, it's a game of long versus short, and that's what I love. That's what I live for. That's what markets are all about, whether we like it or not.
Ross, always great having your thoughts. Gerber, Kawasaki president, CEO, and co-founder, with his insights into everything that's going on across the markets right now. You can also